Good afternoon. We start our next event. This is Roundtable. How can Ukraine take the third place in Europe in terms of internationalization of small and medium-sized businesses? Our guests are Ksenia, Lyapina, Chairman of the State Regulatory Service of Ukraine, Denis Shemyakin, Director of the Reform Support Team at the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine, Igor Burakovsky, Director of the Institute of Economic Research and Political Consultations, Anton Shulyk, Executive Director of Civitta Ukraine, Vyacheslav, the General Director of the Union of Entrepreneurs of Small, Medium and Privatized Enterprises, Dmitry Yablonovsky, Deputy Director of Center for Economic Strategy. Moderator is Dmitry Lyvch, Head of Analytical Department and Project Manager with EasyBusiness, and also Kateryna Shapovalenko, Economic Analyst of EasyBusiness Analytical Center. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We are glad to greet you all here. Today we are going to speak about internationalization of Ukrainian SMEs and why it is important for Ukraine, for enterprises, and for all of us. We would like to start with the simple things. What internationalization is. This is more than about export. It can relate to three forms: trade, cooperative, and investment form. If we are speaking about trade form, this is export, import, and other foreign trade economic activities carried out by SMEs of Ukraine. If we are speaking about cooperative, we are speaking about joint enterprises and opportunity of cooperation with foreign companies who may become partners for Ukrainian SMEs. If we are speaking about investment, this is about attraction of capital for SMEs. This is really important because in modern society, when they speak about internationalization, everyone says that Ukraine should stimulate export. But Ukrainian companies should be included into added value networks of the world, and this is important for economy and enterprises of Ukraine. For the economy, this is important for investment, foreign investment, and to stimulate the activities of the countries, and to include Ukrainian companies in the added value networks of the European Union and the world. When we are speaking about enterprises, this is really important to create new employment places and opportunities to create added value by these enterprises. Once again, if we are speaking about Ukraine as a country where there are opportunities. In Ukraine, we have many competitive advantages. This is stabilization of macroeconomic situation after 2014 and increase in the positions in doing business ranking for 36 points and structural reforms that are ongoing in Ukraine. And the attitude to reforms is difficult because there is no land reform and other important reforms, but there is reform of healthcare and pension system, education reform, and stimulation of economic development on the whole. And in Ukraine, we have highly qualified and relatively inexpensive workforce. We have cheap national currency that provides competitive advantage in foreign markets for Ukrainian enterprises, and also there is demand for capital, for loans, and this creates also advantage at the international markets. If we analyze the level of internationalization of Ukrainian SMEs, we will see such a picture. Ukraine is at the lowest level in Europe, and we are going to discuss this problem today during this roundtable. And also, EasyBusiness prepared a document on this aspect. The mission of EasyBusiness is to create best conditions for business in Ukraine. And about our programs, to improve business climate, to improve access to markets and the protection of property rights, and to stimulate the development of markets. Our achievements starting 2014. We put much effort in order that Ukraine improved its position in the rating for 36 points, and also in cooperation with the State Regulatory Service and with the Ministry of Economic Development, we've reached the effect of $200 million in savings for the economy and the budget. And also we prepared 50 documents to improve the public policy and regulation. And this will improve integration of SMEs in the networks of value-added networks. And you may see two main documents. The document of public policy. These are recommendations that can be implemented, and the document that allows Ukrainian exporters to easily enter markets of Europe, and also trainings that were carried out for SMEs in the regions. Several words about the document on public policy, what our team analyzed. We used classic approach to formation of recommendations about public policy, and we analyzed economic and financial aspects, and also regulatory and non-regulatory environment for SMEs, and we formed a methodology to choose countries in order to analyze international experience of 5 countries of Europe, and we will tell you later why we chose these countries and the criteria, and also the number of recommendations that will allow Ukraine to take the 3rd place in the ranking, and why it is important to stimulate the development of SMEs and to improve their access to international markets. Several words about second document. This document is about how to enter European markets, the EU markets, and we spoke about association agreement and how Ukrainian and what procedures should the entrepreneur undergo to enter the market, and also the readiness of our entrepreneurs to enter the market. And we described the instruments of help for business that were created concerning access to finances, and about access to proper support of that influence the development of SMEs and ability to enter those markets. So why it is important to analyze the activity of SMEs? Because SMEs create 99% of economic entities that are registered. This is 73% of employment. Third, SMEs, this is about 60% of added value in Ukraine economy. And if we are speaking about export, it's not so good for SMEs. 30%, this is the part of SMEs in the some export of Ukraine. 8% is the number of companies who have export intermediary, and this is really important. And we understood it after consultation at the regional level with business, and 3% is the SMEs with international capital, that is about 10%. So this level of internationalization is not acceptable, and proper conditions for business and internationalization of business should be created. Also, we should state that state bodies of power during the last 4 years did more than in 27 years of independence, and many strategies were created, including SME development and stimulation of economy and the improvement of business conditions, but this is not enough for internationalization of SMEs. And I would like to give the floor to Kateryna Shapovalenko, our economic analyst, and she's going to tell you about this in more detail, about the methodology for this research on public policy, what are regulatory and non-regulatory conditions that should be improved, and how we chose the countries to analyze the activity. Yes, we are going to tell you about our calculations. We assessed regulatory and non-regulatory environment. What we mean when we say about regulatory environment? First of all, this is permitting procedures, whether it is easy to get the license or other documents in order to export. Next, protection of property rights, and also customs procedures, and work with the customs broker, also administering of VAT, and also foreign and international payments. So access to resources, finances, knowledge, and technology. These are non-regulatory environment indicators. So we needed to get some estimates. So we had data, information, and surveys among business, and they assessed the access to these resources. They said that access to financial resources is about 20%. So there were several questions about what financial resources are used, how easily to get bank loan. Based on this assessment, we formed a complex assessment about the access to these basic resources. And we understood that in Ukraine, access to regulatory resources and also the state of regulatory environment is not really good. And we studied international experience in order to understand how to improve the situation. First, we considered all European countries. We have data on them. They are the members of OECD. And OECD, they have a policy index, 9 indicators. One of them is the level of internationalization of business. And taking into account these figures, we range these countries where the best conditions of doing business and how they influence internationalization. We chose 5 top countries: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Germany, and Portugal. And in these countries, we studied in detail regulatory environment, 5 principles, and also the programs that of the EU at the national level, and how the system is built and how it helps SMEs to enter foreign markets. Based on these recommendations and our research, we formed our recommendations concerning, first of all, 8 main areas: the improvement of regulatory environment, the improvement of non-regulatory environment. Let's start with regulatory environment. First, this is the simplification of authorization procedures. While surveying SMEs, we understood that they say that the number of operations, foreign operations, procedures and regulations on them, they should be reduced, and also state expertise, an electronic system of licensing, and also there were some improvements in sanitary certificates, hygienic certificates issuance, and we should continue to harmonize Ukrainian legislation with EU. And also we consider the increase of intellectual property rights protection, and this is really important for those SMEs who want to enter foreign markets, and there should be improvement in the protection of intellectual rights, and also there should be proper coordination of local legislation with the legislation of the European Union. Next, customs control. The majority of recommendations, about 4 main points, This is a preliminary clearance, and also the customs cost of and the simplification of verification of certificates, and also simplification of audit and control. And we propose several instruments how to do this. The most important is harmonization of legislation of Ukraine with the regulations of the EU. Also, the improvement of qualification of customs bodies, because business complained that there are delays in the customs offices because of low qualification of officials, and that's why the process of export to EU is in delay. So this can be resolved by the increase of qualification of personnel, and also there can be an automatic system of registration. Fourth and fifth points about increase of transparency of administering of VAT, and also the also about international payments. They should be improved because they are too much regulated, and we should approximate our legislation with the legislation of European Union. Also, we provided recommendations to improve non-regulatory environment. This is about access of finances, knowledge, and technology. If we are speaking about finances, the main problem of Ukrainian business is it is difficult to provide evidence of the solvency, and also bank crediting is rather costly, and there are high risks concerning export activity, and they would like to have to lower these risks. We may create there can be proper crediting from the state in order to finance SMEs, and also we considered Estonia and Latvia and Germany experience, and they created special accelerators to provide venture funding. And also there are tax stimulus for citizens for co-financing of SMEs. If we are speaking about annihilation of risks, there can be some export credit and investment guarantees, and also insurance of export activity for SMEs. If we are speaking about the access to knowledge and information, there are several programs that are implemented successfully, and they allow to overcome this problem. But also we should improve the qualification of officials and workers, and to provide aggregated information to SMEs, how to export, what steps should be made, and where to submit the documents. So all this information should be collected in one place. In Lithuania and Estonia, there are such platforms with aggregated information, and SMEs may get all necessary information there. About access to technology and innovation, the main recommendations that were provided from international experience, there are special vouchers for technologies and innovation in Europe. So this is money that can be used by SMEs first to create their own websites, or to spread advertisement, or to any other activities concerning marketing and promotion of products. If we are speaking about innovations and technologies, the states provide innovative vouchers that help to certify new technologies and innovations and to get property rights on them. Also, many platforms are created in order that SMEs could communicate with universities, and based on this, build and introduce new technologies and new methods. In order to understand how our recommendations influence on the situation concerning internationalization, we developed a complex instrument and complex index of internationalization of SMEs. So two sides, regulatory and non-regulatory environment. We have 5 indicators for regulatory and 3 for non-regulatory environment. In each indicator, we calculated indicators, and this information was taken from official surveys, enterprise service of the World Bank and EBRD, and based on this data, we were able to assess the status of internationalization 2013, how it changed in 2015, and using forecast data of IMF, we were able to understand the forecast, how the countries of Europe will develop concerning internationalization and how Ukraine will develop without our recommendations and with our recommendations. Here we may see that we placed all recommendations that were formed in our document, how they will influence on improvement of the level of internationalization of Ukrainian business. We may see that if in 2015, according to our estimates, the level of internationalization was about 0.45 score, and 1 is the maximum and 0 is the lowest. So Ukraine was in the middle, and when recommendations were taken into account concerning regulatory and non-regulatory environment. So in this case, it will increase up to 0.73. If we consider European countries, in the first column, we see the rating of the countries in 2015. First, Estonia, and Ukraine is at 28th place. If we forecast the data 2020, we will see that Ukraine have low chance to change its position. But if we introduce recommendations developed by our team and our research, Ukraine will be able to get 3rd place according to the level of internationalization of Ukrainian business of SMEs. So we believe that these recommendations will improve regulatory and non-regulatory environment of Ukrainian SMEs, and this will beneficially influence overall economic situation in Ukraine. So this was the presentation of the public policy document, and now the second part of our event, and I would like to give the floor to our speakers to join our panel discussion. Ksenia Mikhailovna, please. Denis, Dmitry. So let's start our panel discussion, and we are going to discuss the situation concerning SMEs in the context of foreign trade and those stimulus that were created at the state level, and about regulatory and non-regulatory environment and opportunities created by the state and by business association and business themselves. And we have representatives of state bodies, the representatives of private companies and associations and analytical centers that work on the issues of SMEs and regulatory environment and internationalization. First, I would like to give the floor to Ksenia Lyapina, chairman of the State Regulatory Service of Ukraine, in order to say several words about the document that was prepared by our team, and also about those conditions created by the State Regulatory Service in order to improve conditions for SMEs in Ukraine, and a lot has been done. So this topic is really interesting, the topic that really is of concern for us as representatives of those who form the policy about SMEs. And this topic is not only about foreign trade, because often all speeches were reduced to this topic, and that now SMEs go out of this narrow scope. This is not only about trade, this is also about integration to the value-added networks in Europe, and we really hope that this integration will be ongoing, because this is a macro-political issue previously. it happened with the aggressor state, and now this crisis of the recent years, starting 2015, this is the change of economic identity as cultural and political identity. They all changed. We now should enter these value-added networks of the European Union, and this is an important topic. So you provided categories, regulatory and non-regulatory environment. Yes, SMEs, they work with regulatory and non-regulatory environment, and because positive regulatory environment is not enough for the development of SMEs in order that they feel comfortable at the national level and then was able to expand their ambitions. So in the doing business ranking that you've provided here, and it is great that you've put it here, that there is a hint on this problem, why our SMEs do not aspire international markets and why investors do not consider our SMEs as partners for investment, for joint activity, and so on. The answer is in two aspects: the implementation of contracts and the protection of property rights. They are not directly regulatory or economic. This is about justice and many other things. But for tens of years, we repeated, and we continue to repeat, that without protection of property rights, hardly anything except trade will appear concerning internationalization of SMEs, because if business is not convinced that this business will be able to protect their property in the country, then we, in this case, we will not be able to attract those partners from abroad here. So the picture in the country changes, and a big deregulation happened in the country. But let's look at the results. Who won from this deregulation? These were medium and big businesses, and small business, they felt the consequences of deregulation less, because this was about certification, expert opinions for the use of natural resources. Many structural changes were introduced, but only one reform was felt by small business. So this is the reform of the oversight and control, the less pressure from them, and small business stated this. And now this pressure increases, and business says that this is negative. So this factor immediately influences small business. The third thing I want to say, and we work in order to change this factor for positive one. So this factor will continue to be, because state will always have some control, but we should minimize it to make it transparent, and it should be risk-oriented, and the pressure on small business should be reduced, and our state regulatory service works on this issue. But I have some considerations, and I invite you for further discussions. And we believe that you should correct this report significantly, because there are many things that raise questions. And first, where the structure of body powers are provided, I have comment on this, and also the state statistics data. 62%, not from those who are employed around the country, but those who are employed by the entities. So those people who read this report, they should understand what they read about. Also other references in your report. So you have references to European sites, and you have references only to the site of Ukrainian organizations. You should provide proper references in order that the reader could click and go to the relevant page, to the relevant section. Next, about coefficients and assessment of current situation. Of course, you should disclose the method of calculation. I know that you took it from the institute, and Mr. Burakovsky will tell us about it. But for any research, even if you refer to some materials, you should briefly outline the methodology, because the reader see 0.22 or 0.26. It's like in old anecdotal story. If you want to look serious with your research, so you should improve this research. And about recommendations. So, of course, we should understand what we can do with all of this, and also what indicators we should reach. So, we should first improve property rights, and if we want to have quality internationalization, we need deeper changes, and this should be included in your recommendations. And also a brief comment about non-regulatory factors. So I'm sure 200%, not even 100%, that the creation of a separate agency of the state support for SMEs, this body is not needed for SMEs, it is not needed for the state and for the citizens. So the principle is like this: we have something and it doesn't work, and then we add something else and it won't work. So there is no proper state support. We should be clear about it. And if we create some additional agency, it will have zero influence. And zero is zero. It won't increase. Everything that is multiplied by zero will be zero. I would like to remind that the government adopted the decision to create an agency of support of export. This is the state institution. The idea is right. In some way, we should support and promote export, but let's pay attention to the fact that this will be about only about trade. This won't promote better internationalization and inclusion to added value networks. It will help to enter foreign markets, and this is good. It should be done, of course, but we should focus the support in the agency for promotion of export, and we should not create additional agencies. And we should create positive business climate and improve the property rights, and to increase the level of implementation of contracts in order to involve these mechanisms of internationalization that do not work today. So this inclusion in the added value network and investment and joint activity venture funds that can develop some brave startups. We lack this in the country, whether it should be of state-owned. It can be business to business, but proper conditions should be created for this. So I believe that you should improve your report. Of course, the information about experience of EU countries, this experience is really interesting. And there are some interesting points and interesting support by grants, for example, to use these grants for research. This is an interesting experience, but it should be focused, it shouldn't be spread, it should be done in a proper way, and we should think this through. And I believe that at the moment recommendations are really far from real life, and you should correct them 100%, because they are based on the declarative documents that were created, these strategic documents that were created recently. Yes, I respect strategic documents, but those documents that were issued recently, they are not strategic. They are only called strategic, but they are really declarative. So we cannot take recommendations from those documents. This is not the best way. We should elaborate these recommendations based on analysis. So you have the right direction, but you should continue your work in this area. Thank you very much for your words. Thank you for this feedback about the document and today's discussion, today's panel discussion. This is the place where, by joint effort, we may find new solutions and we may improve and make this document more practical. And we should be ready to joint effort to internationalize Ukrainian business. So we have representatives of different entities, of state services, business, and together we will be able to improve this document and make it efficient for advocacy of decisions that will improve business climate and stimulate internationalization and to reach economic growth that is declared by Ukrainian government. We stated about the Office for Support of SMEs today. Denis Shemyakin is present, and he is director of reform support team at the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade, and he's going to speak about the regulation and the functions of the Office of Support of SMEs that they plan to launch in Ukraine in the nearest future. Yes, these comments are really of interest, and I would like to provide another view on this aspect. They said about the state agency, not about office. I do not hear her. So, small comment. Office financed by donors, this is great. This will help to the Ministry of Economic Development and the agency, state agency. This is a different story. But this was included into recommendations. Thank God no one creates it. So you should read your own document. I would like to speak about the essence, how to call it. No, this is the difference. Agency or office, these are the different things. For me, this is a preliminary stage. This is, and I believe this is a correct story. And first, for donor money, they started this office and they started their work and they proved their efficiency. And then they provided proper institutionalization. They created a state institution with clear KPI. And they approved why it is financed through the budget. And this money will be not only spent, but invested and will return due to the increase of export. There is some logic when we launch a procedure. We do not only start an agency and finance it. For me, office is the first step that is made to show what can be done in SMEs area. SMEs, they have clear needs, and we understand what should be done for them. So this development and the office that is created, it will be officially presented in the nearest future. There is a team of people, and it was created for the donor money, and in a year they should show quality results of their work. And then there will be discussions how to continue this work. So this office will be focused on the first issue. This is access to finances for SMEs, for small, medium-sized and micro business, for farmers, for small enterprises. They are not able to get bank loans because they do not have proper collateral. This is critical. And I thank you for putting this first, access to finances, and next, information support. We said about it, about the portal, about single window, together with RDO. You may put here cases that are developed. There are many programs, many interesting a lot of interesting information, but it is not really user-friendly, and it is not clearly understood by all the users. That's why we should centralize it and to make it more user-friendly. About provision of information, there is access to financing for SMEs. You may get 10% per year, and this is due to cooperation in Kiev and NUF German Foundation and Kiev City Administration. They helped in this program. And also we would like to focus on coordination of donor support, because there are many projects, grant programs, but there is no proper coordination. There is no proper use of these funds by SMEs. There are many questions about this. And we see it as a sphere of development, and we plan to deal with these issues during this year, and then we will decide how we will assess this activity and proper KPI this activity. So if there is a result, and if this agency provides the product that is needed in the market, and for me, it's not a question whether to invest money in this. I speak with associations, and what I see that micro business, I do not see many associations who would properly lobby the interests of micro business. Maybe a big business, medium-sized business, everything is okay, and if we are speaking about micro business, there is a problem. So the ministry is the policy maker. They cannot implement this policy, and there should be an institution at the operative level. So I do not protect this name, that this is the agency. But first we should provide our activity during 1 year, and then we may come to some conclusions. There should be proper body that should coordinate all the efforts. I believe that this is a correct investment that will return soon. And I would like to join this discussion and say that you want to coordinate the activity of associations who support micro business. So this raises big concern among associations. You didn't meet with them. You do not know them. I know a lot of associations who for 20 years were protecting the rights of micro business. Vyacheslav Mikhailovich, I know him for 25 years. I know their union, and they actively lobby the interests of micro business. And in different advocacy campaigns, I met with this union. I know there is Fortetsy associations and many other associations that are really efficient, and they protect the rights of micro business. They didn't ask someone to coordinate them. So, do you want to create a bottleneck in this sphere of grants and for SMEs? Of course, the ministry is the policy maker, and the policy should be well grounded. It should be properly calculated, and I do not see such a policy, and I hope that your office that will be created, that it will elaborate such policy, and we will look and support this policy, but we do not see it now. And about the agency, it should have some proper responsibilities. Yes, you've said about this office, but there are no state responsibilities. They may deal with this in other format. We should not repeat some things. We should always properly think about cause and effect. What do you mean? Oh, okay. So, about associations that work with micro business, and I know. So, I said that this association deals with micro enterprises. So the man heads the office for micro business and does not know the associations who support micro business. So I have. So we focused on privatization and the medium and SMEs. This is one of the projects, and it went out of the scope of our activity, and now we will have the office that would focus on this. We dealt with deregulation. That's why I'm sorry if I misnamed this organization. So we didn't know this office. When we dealt with deregulation, we do not know you. We know BRDO. We do not know you. We do not know about your work. So you may have your arguments off records, and if you have questions, we may speak about it later. And now the floor is given to Igor Burakovsky, Director of the Institute of Economic Research and Policy Consulting. So how this issue may be resolved due to the support of the state and analytical centers? I do not want to tell about all the problems of SMEs, because you may write it in Wikipedia, because this is a huge thing. I looked through your research and I heard the presentation. That's why I would like to share my opinion on this. First, I believe that we should be really careful as of today, when Ukraine is in such difficult times. This is a political thing, and we are preparing for parliamentary and presidential elections. I believe that all experts and all people who are trying to help the country, they should be really clear and responsible. As classic said from Russian poetry, we do not know what influence our words will have. So I would like to express some wishes and criticism. So internationalization as SMEs and integration to the value-added networks, these are the parallel process, but they are different. If we are speaking about inclusion of Ukrainian economy to global value-added networks, there is a special initiative and the World Bank program, and they assess these indicators, and this is a big topic, and we should be careful about it. In Ukraine now, only first steps are being made in order to see these networks of value, not even speaking about international networks. So this should be explained. We should be careful about this issue. Second, you said about the methodology and research, and it's not clear. 0.22, is it a good access, or this is a benchmark from which we are moving forward? So this is like 0 degree Celsius. This like about water, whether it is freezing or not. Also, I needed more explanation about one issue. When we surveyed SMEs concerning international aspect, we clearly understood that there are two categories of small business. Those who are in the world market, and this is one class of the program with all problem, and those who are not in the world market, who do not enter this market. And in this research, I believe a portrait of internationalized SMEs lacking. Who are they? What they do? What calculations? And I believe that recently, and maybe politicians are to blame, we create some conditions and we say that it will be better. But the question is, who will benefit from this policy? And what will be better and for whom? About access to financial resources. So I would recommend to look at the statistics of the National Bank. They provide credit overviews, and they explain why they provide and do not provide the credits and why. And statistics of National Bank, it gives this data about SMEs. It's better than from State Statistics Service. And we've discussed these issues before, and we believe that you should provide more facts in your research. About international experience, I really value international experience, joining of WHO and the association agreement are of importance, but we should use the experience of other countries carefully. I have a research of European Union, and they had a survey about internationalization of the enterprises at the level of European Union. And they face their own problems inside EU and outside EU, where they are foreigners like we in the EU or other markets. And the situation is not so clear. When they asked those who actively act at international level, they were asked what support they used, and number one, according to research of 2009-2010, many enterprises were surveyed, and Austria led this rating. 47% used some sort of support, and your countries: Latvia 17%, Germany 14%, Estonia 3%. Lithuania 3%, Portugal 1%. So this is not about overall support. We should speak about the volume of the support, its specialization, and also the principles of such support. We should provide proper information about concrete things. The same about non-financial support. Latvia 16%. Non-financial support, motivation, promotion, and so on. Lithuania 12%, Germany 7%. So this is non-financial support. Estonia and Portugal 0. They didn't get support in foreign activity, those companies who work in foreign markets. So I believe when we are speaking about some structures, when we are speaking about experience, we should understand that this experience works in some proper system. And there are some instruments that provide results, but sometimes there won't be results. And also I would like to speak about this research. So we follow business, we follow our politicians, and why when we speak about our country, we say that there is corruption, there are many bad things. I won't repeat them. But what is really worrying for me. Business starts to recognize its own internal problems, and we do not speak about the results of other research, about the number of businesses who believe that they are really competitive at the world market. This is a principal issue. Why they cannot compete? Not because the state is bad, because the state, they do not place firms on the world market. There are some problems, and we lack research in this area. We want to find out what about the quality, what about the cost of their products for entering the foreign markets. And this is some enterprises believe that access to foreign markets is free, but not all of them believe so, but there are such people who think so. And also the issue of personnel is important. And the last thing I want to say, if you look at all of these things, I absolutely agree with Ksenia Mikhailovna. The issue of general and specific support. I am a patriot, and for me, sustainability of Ukrainian reforms will be reached. This is not about election. These offices we create on donor money, they should work on our own money. The business should provide money for these structures, and this is really important because I believe that we deal too much with international help. Of course, we should use these opportunities, but we should look forward. We should look forward, and going back, I would like to say that separate decisions, we can discuss them, but they, I believe, thought through concerning international experience, and we should understand clearly what is going on in the Ukrainian economy. Current situation with SMEs, with those processes that are ongoing, it differs from what we had. The world changed, we changed. If we do not take this into account, we will traditionally speak about banal instruments for which we do not need the research. Everyone should be healthy, everyone should eat at the same time, and walk in the evening before going to bed. Thank you very much. Thank you for this analysis of the document about the countries that were chosen. This is also methodology. And starting 2010, 29, there were many changes in the EU, and those countries you've mentioned, and Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, they moved forward. That's why they entered this document. But going back to the problems of SMEs, we have General Director of Union of Entrepreneurs of Small, Medium, and Privatized Enterprises, Vyacheslav Burakovsky. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to participate in today's event. Thank you for getting this research, and I support what was said by Ksenia, that this topic is really interesting. This topic is really acute, because in our union, and I should say that it exists 25 years, it was created in 1990, and we now study the issue concerning foreign economic activity. And in June last year, we had the meeting of the Council, and the title of this meeting was Export Ukrainian. And we analyzed the situation that we face, and the situation in business, and the situation in the union, and the problems, the challenges, and we considered the issues concerning our program in this area. And we worked on this, and we have our representative offices in more than 20 countries of the world. These are not only This is not only Europe. We have offices in Brazil and South Korea. And we saw that many members of union, from one side, maybe they do not need all what we propose. But from other side, if they need it, there are many aspects, there are many problems they need to overcome, that they should resolve these problems. And only after this, they will be able to get involved in foreign economic activity. So why this is happening and why small business in delay in its work with foreign partners and in delay with entering the market. They understand that there is big competition and that the situation won't provide the opportunity to overcome this competitive challenge. Also, obsolete normative acts that exist in Ukraine, standards, regulations, and norms that SMEs follow when they provide services or create goods. But the level in the European countries, it is much higher. And we should reach this level. We need time. And micro business is not able to do this now. So the absence of real partners in the foreign countries and including in the countries of EU, this is also a problem. The search for such partners, for import and for export, for establishing contacts and information support that exists now from us, maybe from some projects that are implemented in Ukraine. It cannot fully satisfy the business and cannot be used in full. So financial problems were stated, financial and credit support, and the state does not care about this problem. You've said about Kiev project, this is a good project, and now there is support, and the payment for credit rates, and yesterday Ms. Kondrashova presented the results of this project. There was a meeting at Klitschko Expo. And for that big amount of enterprises, really huge, only tens of credits were provided. Only limited number of entities is able to use it. Only production, communal services, and educational entities may use these loans, and others are outside the scope of this project. So we may say a lot about financial problems. Unfortunately, business in Ukraine today cannot get credit resources. Cheap credits are not available. And COSME and 2020, Horizon 2020, if you ask tens of economic entities, maybe they even didn't know about these opportunities, about these projects. And unfortunately, these projects will end, and maybe we will be able to count those who got some resources on fingers, those who wanted to expand or develop their business. And one more problem that we have, I do not remember whether it was noted. This is lack of knowledge about European market. And unfortunately, once again, this information, it is not provided to the economic entities. And one more banal reason, but it is really important. This is language barrier. We helped the members of our union to find partners abroad. And when I asked them about it, because we established some contacts for them. We found a partner for them, and they said, we wrote to them and they didn't answer, but they wrote a letter in Russian. And I said, oh, maybe if they are Germans or French, you should write the letter in their language, or at least in English. But they said, oh, they should understand Russian. So also, I believe that one more important reason is that today there is no proper step-by-step state policy concerning support and development of entrepreneurship. Those problems that exist today, everyone knows about it. These problems existed 5 or even 10 years ago. Those financial support, loan support, we speak about it, and but the situation remains the same. Also, protection of property is really important. Recently, we spoke with some economic entities. One enterprise was deprived of property in Mykolaiv, and they addressed the committee at the Ministry of Justice, and they wrote to all the bodies, but no one responded properly, and courts do not want to hear those cases, and they say they cannot help, and we try to help them, but for some time this enterprise won't be able to work. Speaking about situation in Dnipro, I do not know whether it is true, but this is division of an entity, but this is about the same issues we observe in Kiev. These are small architectural forms. This is removal without any notice. They put it on trucks and just took it away to the waste. And these small architectural forms, the products was there in this premise, and no one takes responsibility for this. So this is about protection of property rights and opportunities for development of business, and also about information support. Today, in Ukraine, there is an interesting project of EBRD about information support and consulting for business, and 15 business centers are created, and the work is carried out to create information portal. So I have a question, and once again today we hear about information portal. I am a member of Consultative Council, Advisory Council at EBRD, and at the last meeting there was a presentation during this meeting about what was done and about this information project, and the donors from Euro Commission, from Brussels, and from office of from Kiev, they were present, and they said you had this Euro portal, we've envisaged financing, but it appeared that there is some other project that want to create such portals, and they mentioned them. So let's create a single information portal that will be universal and that will be useful for business. In order to have one portal, also about the registration of business, EBRD also presented such project, but I believe there should be single road to our single aim. There should be one resource. There are many projects now. There is no proper activity, there is no joint activity, and business suffers in the result, because everything was directed to support, but time passes, funds are used, and no proper support for business happens. So business does not get proper benefits, proper results from those funds that were allocated for Ukraine. I would like to mention one more aspect. And I stress that this topic is really interesting, and we had the meeting of for SMEs at the Production and Trade Chamber of Ukraine, and we agreed that the next meeting that we will have in November, this will be dedicated to the issues concerning internationalization of SMEs and its internationalization into the world economy. And maybe these are the strong words, but we would like to speak with business and to tell the business, including about your report, and to consider the opportunities that are opening before our Ukrainian entrepreneurs, especially small businesses, and what they should do and how they should build their work in order to start cooperation with foreign partners. Thank you. Thank you, Vyacheslav, for this good presentation. It allowed to better understand the needs of SMEs. I would like to give the floor to Anton Shulyk, Executive Director of Consulting Company Civitta Ukraine. They started their work in Baltic states, and he may tell us about Baltic states' experience and also about the projects to improve access to resources, Horizon 2020 and the project supported by the EBRD. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for this fruitful discussion. I would like to go to another part of our discussion, and then I will go back to our view where the state can help SMEs to increase the percentage of internationalization. I would like to start with those projects that really work, where SMEs benefit. We, as a Civitta company, we work directly with representatives of the sector, and we introduce European projects of support in Ukraine, and we see this real experience, what we see, what works. Horizon 2020 is an overall program. It has a number of projects that are focused on different topics. This may be development of science, development of SMEs, social challenges. If we are speaking about one of the instruments, today, this is the instrument for internationalization of innovative Ukrainian business. Today, in this program, 9 Ukrainian projects got financing. If we are speaking on the whole, Horizon 2020 as a program has 80 billion euro of financing, and Ukraine got access to this fund mid-2015. As a country, we got discount 95% for inclusion to this program. So we got access for a small amount of money. What about other countries? So 5 million. And other countries put 100 million. If we're speaking about effect for SMEs, 9 used this program, and there are other Ukrainian projects that submitted through indirectly, and they got this system as well. Why such a small number? So if a business project came and they asked why you have such a big country, why such a small number got this financing. So there are two opinions on this. First, lack of information. Information support, information coverage is really not enough. And we were the first one as a company who helped the first Ukrainian company to write an application and to win financing due to this program. We knew about it because we have office in Lithuania, and several years ago they did it, so we had experience how to do this. And Ukraine joined the program when other countries work in this program, and we should move faster than other countries, but unfortunately we are slow. We disseminate information slow, and the centers of support for business that were founded due to EBRD, they really help. But it was in 2016, 2017, so not long ago. Except those projects, we had a project to create digital innovation hub for development of IoT technologies. So this is Internet of Things with Lviv Polytechnic University. There are 25 in Europe. They are directed to create at the universities the centers of development of innovations who work with SMEs. Unfortunately, it appeared that university lacks knowledge about equipment, and they lack resources in order to develop this topic. And in this, we differ from European universities. We analyzed the situation, and we said that this center may be created, and some entities may get some benefit from it, but the level is lower than in Europe. So there are European initiatives, and we introduced them here, but really slowly. And from our side, as a minimum, we have such a recommendation. They say that if Ukraine does not use Horizon 2020 funds, why should we pay for this? But we say no, we should use this program. We should understand that in order to use it in full, we need time in order to understand and to tell our enterprises how to do it. And we will be able to get more funds through this program. So our recommendation is to continue to work with this program. This is a real instrument for internationalization of SMEs and organizations that deal with research, education, science, and so on. So except SMEs instruments, there is COSMO, and we hoped for financing, but at this stage there is no financing. And the argument was like this: if we use educational opportunities and sharing, and if we do not use first part of opportunities, if we do not show our interest, there won't be proper financing. So there is a chance, but when you speak often, when we speak with entrepreneurs, they ask, do you have money? We say no, no money. So they say, no, we are not interested. So this is limited approach of enterprises. And we can understand them if we look at the situation on behalf of the business, small and medium-sized business. These organizations in Ukraine, they have the revenue of 1,600,000,000 and personnel up to 250. So these are very, very different enterprises. When we are speaking about small business, The company is young, innovative, that develops a product interesting for Europe, and with the support or without support, it may enter European market. It may do some IT things or furniture, or it may produce some agricultural produce. They may enter to European markets with or without state support because they have competitive products, and they will have their place at European markets. And some companies are not innovative, they are obsolete, and their management, their owners do not speak English, they are not able to properly communicate, and they do not want to change. And without state support or with state support, we won't be able to help those companies. So we should focus in the middle on those companies who want but do not understand how to do it. They are ready, but they do not see the resources. And what we have to provide is the information support and access to knowledge. And the centers of support of business, this is plus. Any center and internet platform, this is plus. Okay, if they double some functions, the information, clear information is lacking now. So we want to have more resources like this. And also there is program, business advisory, support the program of consultations from SMEs, from European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and they say that they are ready to provide support and to finance 50% from the value of consulting for business. Let's do some projects. Let's company go to the market, but business, they should understand that they need someone's assistance, and something should be paid for this. And the last one, it takes time. There is some bureaucracy involved. It needs some level of transparency and some level of openness of information. But the process is ongoing, and the number of business who use the support increases. We need to be patient. We should understand that we need time for this. Because if we speak about work with the European partners, trade through export or getting financing or processing of raw materials. We started all this in 2014. Everything was simpler before. There are CIS countries, Russia, direct export without questions. And 4 years ago, in 2014, we started to completely change our approach and work with other organizations who work at a higher level than Ukrainian companies, with some exceptions. And we need time for this. What other programs we see working? COSME program, no money now, but other forms of support. Enterprise Europe Network, this is opportunity for business. This is like social network for business with EU and associated countries. And this way you may get first credit of confidence, and you may speak with the European business directly and understand how to trade with them. Yes, this is bureaucratic. You should learn how to use this platform, and this is some sort of a barrier. About investment, I believe that in Ukraine now, okay, we do not have many, but there are several private equity funds that are active here, and they invest in the prospective companies. So there is no problem in this, and they say that there are not many companies that are really have good prospects for investment. Even if we would like to get this capital, we should put effort in this. So IT has acquired huge support from venture investors, startup IT, concerning development of some technological solutions or the development of software. So if it has prospects, it gets financing, and it becomes international really quickly. In the modern world, if you worth attention and investment funds, you will get this financing if you present your product and if you promote your product. And if no, so your development is your own business. What we see, what is efficient, we see the programs of support, traveling abroad from commercial chambers, Ukrainian or foreign ones, Norwegian Chamber of Commerce. They hold events several times a year, and you may meet with representatives of business. You may establish long-term communication with them. You should provide your product information about it, and there should be proper, you should be able to undergo customs proceedings and other things. And we see efficient work of the unions, associations of SMEs who get united, and they provide tours in order that people better understand the work of foreign markets and provide them opportunities to present their products abroad. So what we see the problems with credit rates, and these are business realia, and the loan in hryvnia you may get for 20–25%, and economically there is a ground for this. This is not someone's wish to put such rates. If we had a program for SMEs to get credits for lower rates, I believe that this will be really good. But now we do not see large-scale programs that would provide such loans. So we see the situation. We carried out monitoring for our clients, and some point programs maybe exist, but there are no big programs. And in this, we lose because European business, they have 4 or 5% rate. So we should help export finance with export financing to wait for payment from one of the countries of the EU. We wait 3 to 6 months, and it costs money. Maybe here this help would really be good. And about fund of the funds, we speak a lot about. This is the fund of the state that co-finance the investment of foreign or Ukrainian partner. We didn't create it, but this is the world practice when the country co-finance and guarantees safety of such investment. And we lack this. This is non-regulatory things I'm speaking about. This is more business things. About other countries, Lithuania or Romania, they have state co-financing if some enterprise open production, or a simplification in connecting to networks, or co-financing from the budget. Also, there are financing and investment in R&D, and Ukrainian startups. Sometimes they go to other countries because there they have some support from the state. So if we provide such conditions here, they won't leave. So the centers for promotion the business, we support their work and the increase of the scope of their activity. And the Horizon 2020, we should promote this program, and we support this idea. And there are many projects. And we, as representatives of Ukraine, we didn't hear about many other programs, and we do not use the full scope of opportunities that is provided. And the export companies, they should have proper certification, and certification costs significant amount of money, and here there should be support of EBRD or the support of the state in order to simplify the process of certification, to help with this process. That would be good. This is about the role of the state we see, not non-regulatory role. And SMEs, they should have more ambitions. Those who enter European markets, they put money and efforts several years, and they enter those markets. You need to have higher quality, and you should be innovative. Without it, we are not needed there, and you should improve your business and work on this improvement. And if we want to be internationalized, we should get consultations or to use the programs of support. And the English language, of course, is necessary. So this is all. So our next speaker is Dmitry Yablonovsky, Deputy Director of the Center for European Strategy. He was recently in Germany, and they shared their experience about the business clusters. And we'd like him to share this experience with us. We carry out the research now. Mannheim University participate in this research, and so this is a separate experience of the country, but we have some considerations due to this experience. So we should go back and ask why the state should do something with the SMEs. We have entrepreneurs, more than 1 million of individual entrepreneurs. So I do not say whether it is good or bad, but we have a good regime of taxation for individual entrepreneurs. There are hundreds of thousands of legal persons. Should the state do something? Mittelstand experience can be used in Ukraine, and how can the state help? There are two directions. First, this is target structure, the division of enterprises according to their size and the number of those who are employed. So the basis of German economy is middle-sized business, and in Ukraine there are many mini enterprises, millions of individual entrepreneurs, and from the other side of this division there are the richest Ukrainians or production groups who influence the policy, and they influence the economy, and in the research we call it state capture. So we believe that middle-sized business should be stimulated, and also mini business should try to grow to the middle size. So the business should grow, and in many cases these businesses should be internationalized, and due to entrance to foreign markets, these businesses can grow. Another reason why the state should think about development of SMEs, this is that development of entrepreneurship is the way to establish equal opportunities, to fight with inequality between the regions, and this is one of the forms of help that is allowed. When we start to speak about help to business, this help should not distort competition, and this principle is envisaged by Ukrainian legislation as well. So we we have more developed and less developed regions. So we try to stimulate entrepreneurship in some region, and we try to resolve this program of regional inequality. And also there are some vulnerable groups. And for example, some people are unemployed, and these people may get involved in business, they may become entrepreneurs. These can be IDPs. So some people cannot find job and they may become entrepreneurs, and this may be taken into account while restructuring coal industry, because the minister said that 2 billion are needed for restructuring of the coal mines, and also this money may be used differently. New opportunities may be created for development. I, as a participant of roundtable about land, people say about ruining of our villages, and there are 6 billion of subsidies, and we should stimulate entrepreneurial initiatives. So this is the second aspect. Having the money we spend now, or money that donors may provide, and there are big money for IDPs envisaged. So we may provide this money to people in order that they carried out entrepreneurial activity. How to stimulate people to create new business, how to stimulate business to develop. So I agree there are some hygienic factors. So this is legitimacy, protection of property rights, and there should be fair courts. And also one problem mentioned today, why the entrepreneur, first question we should answer, why a person who is not entrepreneur, why the person should become an entrepreneur, because this is not evident. You may go and work on some mine, or you may go to Poland. This is also the issue about migration, whether we want to create situation when people came back and become entrepreneurs. So why should the person become an entrepreneur? And if he became an entrepreneur, why he should grow? So maybe this issue, why should I grow, and to go from the entrepreneurial why should I shift from individual entrepreneurship to LTD? So once I was an individual entrepreneur, and I dealt with all the documents, and for me it was it would be difficult to change the form of entrepreneurship. So at each stage we should understand the motivation for the person to start the entrepreneurial activity, and then to grow and to change this entrepreneurial activity. So there are hidden champions that become the leaders at the local level, and they work on competitive markets, and due to constant innovations, and they get some opportunities to be local leaders, and they then with their good products they go to foreign markets, they go abroad and become successful there. So speaking about the role of the state, maybe there should be systemic support, and what we saw in Germany, this system is well thought through. Clusters are created. The person may work for 1 year, for example, in some premise to get some grant. Then this person goes to the next level and creates the enterprise, and other institutions may help legally and provide accounting support. And then this enterprise may go to international level, and there are institutions that may help in how to reach foreign markets, and they can provide legal and technical support, and they can explain specificity of foreign markets. So this support at each level is very well thought through, and those are different institutions that provide such support, but there are overall strategic understanding of how it is happening. So there are two more comments, what was not mentioned today. So if the state should support SMEs, and on what level should it do so? There should be proper driver, such as motivation, such as competition. So regions may compete, and what we saw in Germany and from the research that we created at the level of the cities, there are institutions that work, and a lot of money goes from the European Union and the funds of the EU. But organization of clusters, some companies that help to enter foreign markets, this is all at local level. And I believe that we do not have an alternative, and we should move in this direction. And mayors and local power, they should understand that decentralization is not only some new proceeds to the budget. This is not only construction of playing grounds before elections, but this is help and creation of comfortable conditions for business. And this mechanism of competition between the regions, I believe in this much more than in some state support. Yes, central support, this support from state level is also important, but we should deal more on a regional level. Thank you.
So thank you all the speakers for your comments, and thank you all for your interest for the first presentation of our analytical report. Of course, we need to make some amendments there, and of course to communicate our findings to businesses and to authorities, as well as think tanks that are represented here. We are ready to continue this discussion in order to develop a toolkit that would allow Ukraine to improve our regulatory legislation, and that would allow our businesses to enter foreign markets. Dear guests, unfortunately, we have no time left for questions, so you feel free to ask them off the records. Thank you.